All right, what's up everyone? Back again with some more Crimson Desert. Shocker, still obsessed with the game. I've continued playing every single day, really enjoying myself. 140 hours in now, and what an adventure it's been. Also, amazingly, still feels like I've got a whole heck of a lot of game left. Because I do. How much of the map do I have revealed? Let's like fraction this here. I think half. I think I could safely say I've seen half the map. That's not probably even entirely accurate though, because although I have Payloon completely revealed, that's because I rung the bell tower. There's still a lot of POIs that I've never visited. Like I've never been to these towns. Those are NPC markers. So I've never even been here, and I bet your ass there's a bunch of these POIs that I've never been to. So yeah, not even half of the game that I've seen at 140 hours. For today's video, we've got some really big updates. So if you hadn't heard, last week they released a patch addressing some of the major issues and complaints that people were having. Also, earlier this morning, they released another patch addressing more issues and complaints that people were having. I mean, they're cooking here, I gotta say. On top of that, Pearl Abyss had an investor call recently, during which they share some exciting details about the game's future, and the tides have continued to turn, with more and more people coming around and realizing, damn, yeah, Crimson Desert's actually really good. Still not for everyone, still got its quirks. Nevertheless, a really good game, which has resulted in a further increase to the game's review scores. And I would say a pretty steady player count for a single player game, especially one as massive as this. But before we get into the news and stuff, I did want to give you a little update as to how my playthrough's been going. So yeah, as mentioned, I've sunk over now 140 hours, seen much more of the game, have continued to be surprised, and gotten a bit of a further understanding about various features and mechanics, of which there are quite a few. Bunch of cool stuff and surprises. Again, continue to be pleasantly surprised and find neat things all over the place. One thing that just keeps on happening is accidentally stumbling into boss fights. Something going on here. Okay, it's a boss. Queen Bismuth. I think I'm gonna try the back, yeah. Dealing 0 damage. I had no idea this was a boss fight, by the way, so I wasn't exactly prepared. G'day, dude. This game. Similarly, it's been a lot of fun continuing to come across new creatures and interesting things in the environment. Oh, what is this one for? I'm actually confused. I don't know what these are for. There are things like this that will have, oh my God, they're like enemies? Stone lantern spiders. Holy crap, that's hilarious. Did not expect that. Which is literally something you constantly say while playing this game. I guess at some point I should come to expect everything and see what happens. It is like non-stop surprises. I also finally learned how to get behind waterfalls, which I had no clue during when I was reviewing the game. I just thought waterfalls are inaccessible. Maybe I need a special ability. It turns out you did need a special ability, but it's one that you have almost right from the start. You can actually go through waterfalls. You have to use your shield stab. In fact, let me see if there's anything behind this one right here. And it worked. Okay, let's see what's in this one. Still learning new stuff 120 hours in. It's legit crazy. It's part of why this game is appealing to so many people. It's just, there's so much in it. And like a lot of stuff's really cool. And you're coming across new things, and you're getting surprised by boss encounters and awesome pieces of loot that you're finding all over the place. Like, we'll see what's in that chest. And it's been a lot of fun engaging with the game's armor, but specifically the weapon system, and coming across and finding and acquiring new weapons with new particular abilities attached to them and playing around with those. I actually got a new Abyss gear piece for my two-hander that we got in the last stream. I've got 2 special procs happening off of my heavy attacks now. So every heavy attack, I send out a flock of crows, and then those yellow homing orbs, which if there's enemies nearby, they sit in the sky for a second and then they drop down. Dude, this new setup is unbelievable. Oh my God. And speaking of weapon abilities, I've also come to the realization that the weapon that you use really doesn't matter. Barring a few nuances of some weapons having like a higher top end damage, or sacrificing top end damage for a little more crit or a little more attack speed, it's pretty much just like you pick the weapon that you like how it looks, you like its basic attack pattern, and then you can just keep upgrading that and move cores from other weapons into that one whenever you feel like it. It kind of doesn't matter what weapon you use. You can change the cores in and out of everything. Like I added a bunch bunch of cores to this weapon. The Crow's Pursuit and the Ator's Orb weren't initially on this weapon. Then the reason that's, I think, kind of important to consider is that when you upgrade a weapon, especially when you get to the higher tiers of upgrading, it requires artifacts, you know, and those are hard to come by, and they also function as your skill points. So you don't want to be upgrading too many weapons and then swapping to a new weapon when you can just swap out. When you find a new cool core, you can just swap it out. It seems like it's more about find a weapon type with like an attack pattern that you like and the requisite slots to put gear in the future, and then just focus on leveling that. But don't be constantly upgrading and swapping out, because you're gonna be kind of screwing yourself out of artifacts. Are all cores swappable? Yeah, you can take them out and put them in something else, whatever you want. Now there's like weapon abyss cores and armor abyss cores that are unique to like weapons and armor. Amongst those, you can freely swap any abyss core that you find in a weapon. Like you find a new cool weapon with a special ability on it, you can freely swap that to any other weapon you want. Over this past week, I also finally started getting into the game's real power progression, which aside from like boosting up your skill tree, getting more artifacts and getting more skill points, it all comes down to progressing your cores, upgrading those cores, making them stronger. But yeah, really what's most important are the cores. And also another thing to realize, and I just started doing this, is that you can level up these abyss cores. So notice right here, I've got a move speed level 3 gem. Now initially the Blackwing Mask had a move speed level 1 gem, and then I had other pieces of gear that had move speed level 1 gems. Pull 2 level 1 move speed gems out at the witch, you combine them and they go to move speed level 2. And then you get 2 of those move speed level 2 gems, and you can combine them at the witch to make a move speed level 3. But yeah, like one good reason to try to go find a bunch of different gear pieces, unique gear pieces that have some abyss cores, is because you can pull their gems and combine them to make stronger gems. Like I'm trying to get as many level 3. Right now my movement speed is level 11. I'm almost at the cap of level 15. And I don't know if you get you've got these breakpoints at 5, 10, and 15. I don't know if you get any extra bonuses at those breakpoints, or if this is just the stat cap for these different things. Did gear get destroyed when you pull gems out? No, not at all. You can keep moving shit around if you change your mind or whatever. And as I've played more and spent more time with the game and started to push out further beyond the Hernan region, I've started to also realize that combat's a lot more engaging than you're kind of initially led to believe in the opening 10, 20, 30, 40 hours. When you're just fighting the bleed bandits, combat's kind of simple for the most part. It gets a lot more complicated and a lot more engaging as you push out further and as you get more time. Combat just feels like I'm holding out R1 and R2. Seems boring, but everyone loves the combat. Early game is pretty spammy. It gets better as you unlock more abilities and when you actually face enemies that A, don't die in a hit, B, have more health, so you actually have to engage with them, and C, have more abilities. Like, I mean, if you were here and watching, I'm not just spamming. I can't just spam light attack or heavy attack and not get destroyed. But it does take some time. Most of around Hernan, when you're just fighting the bandits, combat's pretty simple and you can kind of do anything. But as you start to progress further in the game, the enemies get a lot harder. You deal with more elites. Even the basic enemies have more abilities and more variety. But yeah, the bandits are a joke. You can literally just look at them and they'll fall over. It doesn't stay like that though. Even with me, like I'm on top of my upgrades. I've got most of my abyss cores leveled up to tier 3, the highest tier. I've got my gear leveled up quite a bit. I've got a lot going on, but combat is it's not a cakewalk, you know. It goes back and forth. Like sometimes you'll just deal with some basic enemies, and obviously if I walk through Hernan right now and I come across bandits, I will destroy them because the game's got no level scaling. So think of like, I don't know, in an MMO where you start off in the level 5 to 10 zone, but then by the time you get level 50, if you go back to the level 5 zone, everything falls over. It's kind of that way in this game as well. But in the process of pushing out, combat gets more engaging because it's less steamroll. Now, on top of all of like the critique and feedback that we've given in the past, there's a couple more updated thoughts that I've had. For one, the alternate characters really do continue to feel kind of pointless or not worth investing time and resources into, and I wish that wasn't the case. Have you played the other characters? Briefly, they're kind of, it's kind of designed poorly though, because in order to power up those other characters, you have to use artifacts for skill points that could otherwise be used for the main character. And so any skill points you spend on the other characters are that much less on the main character. And I've not maxed out any of the stat nodes, and I probably only have about half of the ability nodes. So like I still need way more skill points just for the character that I'm playing 95% of the time. So the idea of spending any on a character that I might play here and there in a one-off mission, I just don't want to do it. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of that was kind of poorly designed. I wonder if they're gonna look to change that in the future. I will say this could change later on in the game, like maybe once I completely upgrade and max out Cliff's skill tree and I've upgraded all his weapons and gear, so I've used all of the artifacts for that. Maybe at that point I'll want to start investing into the other characters, but right now I really don't want to. Oh, and then also I do wish pets were a bit quicker with their looting. Now in the last week's patch they mentioned making sure that they loot more reliably. It still seemed over the course of the past week of playing that they're kind of slow and they really don't pick up things straight away as you might hope and want them to, which is a surprising contrast to their other game. Is there a loot pet? Yeah, my doggo. He goes around looting for me. He's having a hard time right now, I think because the tree's in his way. Can you get around it, doggo? Pick up some of my loot. There you go. Yeah, he goes around. He's kind of slow, so you still do end up wanting to loot yourself a bit because they're not super quick about picking up every single piece of lootable objects on the ground. But it's pretty good. It's a nice addition, just like Black Desert too. Well, not just like Black Desert, because Black Desert, those pets are fucking hauling and they are grabbing everything. Oh, and finally, I keep seeing this come up as comments in my videos and when I'm live streaming. Guys, you gotta stop saying I look like Cliff. I do not look like Cliff. Okay, sure you heard it before. But it's cool they modeled Cliff after you. Yeah, that's it. It's literally, the only resemblance between me and Cliff is we both have a beard, but I appreciate it. That's true. Yes, true. Yes, me and Cliff, professional beard wearers. Okay, so now let's move on to some of the news and updates. So literally on the day I released my last video, which I think was last Monday, in that video, we discussed the devs being really responsive to feedback and planning a lot of changes, but also all the changes they made during the review process in response to our feedback there. On that very same day, they did in fact release a patch. I noticed after uploading the video that a new patch was out with some big changes. Some of the major highlights there, where we get an initial round of improvements to the controls, making movement, environment interaction, and the UI more responsive, along with adding new keybinds. They doubled effectively the maximum amount of available inventory by letting players use the storage at the Greymane camp as their own personal inventory. They also placed a ton more fast travel locations all throughout the world, almost comically so. Some of these are like 20 meters apart. That's hilariously close. They rebalanced some of the early game bosses that were particular sticking points for players, and they made a bunch of fixes and improvements to various graphical and performance issues that some players were experiencing. Now it was a very long patch list, a lot more quality of life and additional changes beyond that, but I think those are really the highlights. But there's already been tons of videos released about those, so I don't want to belabor any of those same points. But then also, as I talked about at the top, just today, I had already put most of this video together. Just today, they had another big patch come out with a bunch more changes addressing complaints and points of criticism or even just basic desires of the community. At the top of the list, it was them adding 5 new legendary non-horse mounts that players can tame and summon. Up till now, we could ride mounts that we kind of subdued, things like bears out in the wild, but you couldn't keep them permanently. Well, now there are 5 new non-horse mounts. There's like a wolf and a bunch of other stuff in there. I'm going to be jumping in later today and check out, hope to get some of these myself. But yes, players were saying, why can't we permanently keep some of these non-horse mounts? Well, now you can keep 5 new legendary ones. Better inventory management with a bunch more sorting and moving around options. They also moved the private storage at camp into Cliff's tent. Previously, it was behind that one NPC, and you kind of had to always awkwardly walk around him to access the storage. Now it's just right out in Cliff's tent. They've made further improvements to pet looting to make it even more reliable, so maybe my earlier complaint will be null and void once I hop back in later. They also made it, this is really good, so the criminal acts are no longer decreasing contribution if no NPCs witness them. There was kind of this awkward thing where you would sneak into a building, steal some objects, and then you would instantly lose reputation with the region, even though you weren't caught. And that always felt kind of awkward. Well, now that's no longer the case. They also made some further improvements to movement controls for characters and the mounts. People are saying it's feeling a bit more snappier and responsive. They reduced the flight stamina consumption. This was a big one. You would fly, and even with some upgraded stamina, it seems like you couldn't fly for very long. Now we should be flying for a lot longer. And just like the prior patch, there was quite a bit more in here, but I think those are kind of the top bullet point list. I'm sure there'll be some other videos going over every single line of the patch notes. And with all this stuff, and as time goes on, the tides really do continue to shift. It's amazing what a difference a single week can make. From the game's launch the other Thursday, the ensuing tidal wave of negative impressions and mixed user review scores that it started out with, to a mere 10 days later right now, and all I'm seeing everywhere pretty much is high praise for the game, and the Steam ratings continue to climb. Currently, Crimson Desert has a very positive rating with a score of 83%. This is up from the mostly positive that the game had last week to now very positive, and that mostly positive was up from the mixed rating that it had the first few days post-release. Now, upon hearing that, some people might want to say, well, of course it's only going up because everyone who dislikes the game left their negative reviews and then they stopped playing, so it can only go up from here, but that sort of ignores all of the games that exist with negative and mixed ratings perpetually. Some games do not go up. Some games stay negative or mixed if they're really that bad. I think Crimson Desert is a great example that maybe doesn't leave the best first impression, but is actually a quality game underneath, and that's starting to reflect in the scores as time goes on. Don't worry though, the game does of course still have its detractors. They keep popping up into my streams to express their disapproval. Why are you continuing to play this soulless game without any narrative? This game is a lot of fun, bro. I love sandbox games, and this is like a fantasy sandbox game, basically. I need zero storytelling to enjoy a fun open world to explore with interesting stuff to see. In fact, I'll be real with you. I would probably like this game better if it had no cutscenes. Like, I think I would actually like the game better if it was just, if it plopped you in the world and it was like, brother, explore, have a blast. 'Cause I'm a big fan of survival games. I'm a big fan of classic MMOs where there's little to no direct, like, here is the story. We're gonna read it to you, and we're gonna show you a movie telling you our story. And I'm like, I don't need that, man. I wanna get in this world and kind of play around. And that's a lot of times that's what I prefer. And this game basically delivers that while also having some story. I think probably most exciting of all, beyond the fact that I still have a whole lot more game to explore, is the idea of this game getting more additional improvements, like the patches we've seen over the past week and a half, and more additional content in the future. And we got some discussion about this with Perlibus recently having a shareholder meeting just a few days ago. In this meeting, Perlibus' CEO opened up by overviewing the game's performance and immediate plans for updates, saying, since its launch, Crimson Desert has continued to show solid performance, recording the #1 spot on Steam sales, 240,000 concurrent users, and 3 million sales in just 4 days. We will further upgrade the game through continuous patches, such as improving controls based on user feedback, which we've seen now in 2 major patches post-release. Now, when asked about critiques of the game's story, he said, I partially empathize with the disappointment users feel regarding the story. I believe it would have been better if we could have handled it better. The development team tried to fill in the gaps in the remaining time, but ultimately we focused on strengthening the gameplay, which is what we do best. And as a personal aside, I want my games to focus on their gameplay, their exploration, their systems and mechanics, more so than their story. Personal preference. That knocks some people on their asses, apparently, based on some of the comments that I've seen discussing this in the past, but it's just the kind of gamer I am. I don't really, for the most part, come to my video games for the cutscenes and for the NPC dialogue. A lot of times I could even do without it, but that's not to say that I don't think it's important for games to have good stories, and I do know a lot of people really value that, so maybe they'll make improvements to that. I could take it or leave it. In this meeting, the shareholders also asked if they had plans to release paid DLC, because of course they were asking that question. To which he actually said that they're going to focus on free updates for the time being, specifically saying, while it is good to see sales of expansion packs, I believe there are games that generate revenue by increasing sales of the base game as content expands. I want to make strategic decisions to ensure the base game of Crimson Desert sells well. Essentially, he's saying here, keep improving the core game, more people will buy the game as positive word of mouth spreads, and I think that's a good avenue. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't eventually, some point down the road, sell some form of DLC or major expansion, but I am happy to hear that at least his current headspace, or the one that he's saying publicly, is that they just want to keep improving the base game and make more money off of sales of said base game as it keeps getting better. Great, love to hear it. They've also considered official mod support, but are still deciding, basically saying it's not something they're currently having planned, but they might look into it in the future. They're also potentially taking a look at a Switch 2 version of the game if you were looking to play it there. And as for the multiplayer and or co-op support, well, I guess they tried it during development, but it had its issues. Specifically, they said, the development team actually tried to implement multiplayer internally, but there are clearly aspects of graphics that must be sacrificed given the current device environment. This was a translation, by the way, from their original language. So yeah, it looks like it's probably not in the immediate pipeline. Maybe it's something they continue to work towards and we get in the future, but right now, it's gonna remain a single player game. All right, that's some pretty cool stuff I wanted to show you guys. guys in case you happen to miss it. So apparently, if you try to sail to the edges of the map, they've actually implemented something to stop you creatively. So you get this little warning, the tides kind of go a little crazy all of a sudden. You can't really row the boat anymore. It says turn around now or else, and that or else is a massive whale that swallows you. That's really cool. I actually do really appreciate that. Just the fact that they bothered to put that in the game, you know what I mean? Something that I've loved about this game is the variety, just the variations and ways you can engage in combat. And we've had some people really emphasizing the martial arts aspect of it. And I mean, I love it. This looks, it's just great, dude. I've kind of played around with it briefly. There's certainly a lot more depth. Like, I haven't done that before. There's certainly a lot more depth to the system than even I've seen. I love this here. You can bring down these archer towers with all sorts of things, apparently including knocking someone on their ass and then collapsing the whole thing. Any like heavy attacks will do it, which is usually what I do. I just heavy attack the base and then the archer falls down. And here's something I had absolutely no clue about. So I've known that you can grab these banners and use them as a weapon, but apparently if you double jump with them, it pole vaults. This is what I'm talking about. This game, it just continuously, there's new things, there's new mechanics that are in this game that just like, what, that's there? The game has pole vaulting as a mechanic. I mean, that's cool, dude, it's so cool. Oh, and yes, today we got the, so we got the new mounts that were added today, and evidently the wolf ones are literal combat companions. When you get off your wolf mount, I guess if you're in combat, it's gonna start attacking for you. Like, so they had all of this in it? What the heck? Oh, and then the last thing I wanted you guys to know about, while I was playing, I found this incredibly helpful site, crimsondesert.gg. It's got all of the weapons listed in the game. If you're kind of wanting to check out and look for certain types, you can find out what they are, where they are. But then it also has one of those ultra useful interactive maps. If you're looking to farm certain resources or for particular things, this seems to be the current site to go to. And a lot of these interactive sites for different games are just absolutely absurdly littered with ads that really ruin the experience, and this one isn't. So yeah, highly recommend crimsondesert.gg. Check it out. Not sponsored, it's just legitimately really super useful, great stuff. So all right, well, that about does it for today. I'm continuing to be obsessed with this game, and far more than I expected. You know, going into it, I was like, I really hope I like it. I enjoyed some of the gameplay and hands-on previews that I'd seen. Going through the review process, initially I was like, well, there's some strange things here, but there's something interesting. And as every day progressively went on, I was liking it more and more and more and more, to the point up until launch when I released the review and I was like, I love this game. I think some people will bounce off, but I adore it. And now post-release, in the time since, I've kept on playing and I just keep becoming more enamored with it. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I absolutely love it. Fantastic game. What a wonderful surprise. And we're only a couple months into 2026 and already I'm hit with a banger like this that's sucking up all my time. So yeah, loving Crimson Desert. That'll do it for today. Thanks guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the vid. I'll see you next time. Take it easy.